Allison Rosen. Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Allison, with her good times never end. Allison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Allison Rosen, Allison's your new best friend.
Hey everyone, hi, hello, it is me, Allison Rosen. Welcome to another episode of Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. I'm sitting here with one of my favorite people, Pete Holmes, and a fan favorite. Welcome back.
Did you have sound effects last time I did this?
I think we did. I think we did.
Wow.
I don't
love
know.
It.
You know what? I don't know that we had the applause.
Yeah, no. Wow. Okay. Do you have chicka bow bow?
Now we do. We're going to grab that. And forevermore we will. So I intend to heap praise on you for your new HBO show.
Did you get
Crashing.
to see it?
I did. I watched it last night. I loved it.
I didn't know we could do that. You
We
know what I
can.
mean? Like, it's exciting. Like, you asked to see it, and then I was like, I don't know. And then it worked out. I'm glad it worked out.
Gwyn hooked me up.
Gwyn?
I'm
so happy you liked it because you're one of the few people that's seen it.
Oh, yay. I wish it could. You know what? I realized as I was about to say,
What if you're like, I wish it got picked up. It did get picked up.
No, I was going to say, I wish it could stay like that. And then I realized that would be a terrible situation for you if it stayed
Like secret.
well,
Oh my
or
God.
just like, wow, a lot of people didn't watch this, but Allison did.
That's funny. Like, you can still be special.
Yeah, like ego-wise for me,
Maybe
I was
we could
like,
go the other way. I didn't mean to do that. Like, everybody's giving you the whole season on one day. Maybe we'll go really hard in the other direction and be like, you need to be invited. Like early Facebook.
ooh, I like that. Or
Have you
like
seen
that,
it?
that celeb-only dating app, Raya. Have you heard about that?
I have heard of Raya. Celeb only.
Yeah.
I'd like to go on. I'd like to get an account. I wonder if I could, and then just be like, you're not a celeb. Just like find all the people
Right.
that don't belong on there.
I heard Moby's on there.
I believe it. Moby's around.
Yeah.
I see Moby from time to time.
He's fairly accessible as far as celebs go. I
He's
don't know
actually
who
on
else.
OkCupid. A friend of mine went on a date with him.
Oh,
through
really?
there. Yeah.
That
Really?
seems very Moby.
He's out there.
He's doing it. I like that. I like when people can just be like, yeah, Moby. I heard him introduce himself once.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm Moby. I was kind of like, I wonder if he's like, I'm Dan. Like,
Is that his actual name?
Daniel Mobius or something. Like, I don't know.
Oh my God. If your name is Daniel Mobius, but you go by Moby, I feel like you're selling yourself short.
Yeah, Daniel Mobius is a better name.
That's so cool.
I'm Daniel Mobius. I don't know. But yeah, no, it would be fun to do some celeb-only dating because I only want to date other terrible people.
Right.
Are you also the worst? Do you also want to listen to me talk while you scan for something that makes you think of yourself? That sounds terrible. My girlfriend is proudly a non-celebrity. You know, the Damon route, Matt Damon?
Sure.
I like the Damon route.
Sure.
Not that I'm Matty D. Nobody is.
No, there's only one.
Except Matty D.
Yeah.
But, I like that, steady Eddie.
Well, how is it for her dating a celeb like you?
Well, I was declined from Raya. Is it Raya?
Yeah. I don't know if it's
Naya?
Raya or Raya. Raya.
Moby?
It's
Daniel
Raya. I don't know if it's Raya or Raya. I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
I'm married, but I wish I could be on there just because I want to be accepted by them and I just want to see what's going on.
Yeah, it's the verified check mark of dating.
Exactly.
Val is the best, and one of the things that I really like about Valerie is she's the best person to give gifts, and so my life has elements of, wow, what a gift that we get to go to this thing or something, or see a movie before it's out, or whatever it might be.
Okay, she's not jaded.
That's what I mean, is she gets excited, and it's fun. I know it sounds kind of paternal, but it is fun to experience things through her excitement. Because I'm like, although she's starting to kind of come over to my side, I'm like, we could go to that party, and we'll see famous people. But now we're at the point where we're like, and then we don't go. But like just 6 months ago, we would go. We go to sometimes, and she does enjoy it.
Right.
But for the most part, it's pretty ordinary. And I know everybody says that, but it really is.
I believe you.
It is. Yeah, you can go ahead and believe us. To ask all our Postmates delivery people. We have a very normal existence.
Okay, so I intend to heap specific praise on you about the HBO show, but first, let's talk about this. You were the very first guest on my podcast ever.
I know. You're my old best friend.
I know. We should change a song just for you. And on that podcast, recorded in my Hollywood home, which you dubbed a Hobbit house.
Yeah.
Because it did seem like hobbits should live there.
This place you're in now is like a continuation. You clearly like this style, right?
The Hobbit style?
No, just kind of like, what do you call this? What is the style of home? Because it reminds me of your old place.
That makes me feel good because I feel like...
It's quaint.
Yeah. I
cozy.
feel like the place that...
Not small. I'm not doing code for small. People call my place cozy all the time. I'm not doing that. I mean, like, it feels warm.
Yeah.
I want to nap here. I will nap
But
here.
the place...
That's a threat.
Do it. Go for it. It would make me know that you feel really relaxed.
Yeah.
The Hollywood place had sort of a like enchanting foresty vibe. And I
Yep.
don't feel like this place does. But there's still some archways and shit.
It's not the Shire, but it's in the Tolkien universe.
Okay.
Like, I feel like elves might live here.
Oh, good.
It's like an Airbnb for elves.
It's my dream.
Elf B&B.
Elf
Elf B&B.
I like that. So anyway, on that podcast,
Yeah.
in the Shire, you said, although you're straight, that you wanted to sleep with Ryan Gosling
Yeah.
after you had seen Crash.
You mean it's not Crash. It's
Not Crash. What's that movie?
Drive.
I knew it's same
Because
number
my
of
show's
letters.
called Crashing,
Yes.
and you said it out already.
Well, and also there is a movie called Crash,
there is, yeah. I think,
but
we
it's
get,
totally different.
I think
With-
we get in accidents just to touch each other. Then it won all the awards. Remember? Yeah, sure.
yes. But so anyway, have you seen La La Land?
I did.
What'd you think? Because I just saw it and I'm all about it. And now I'm all about him. And I was never really into him.
I know. I got to be ahead of the curve for something.
Yeah.
Like the people that fell in love with Ryan, let's just call him Ryan,
Okay.
Because of Drive, actually were ahead of the curve. We got to be. I liked Ryan when he was on a Saved by the Bell spinoff that took place at sea.
What
That's
was
true.
that called?
You might
How
wanna, you
did
might
I-
want to get a Googling.
How did I miss? That's right up my alley.
He was the Zach Morris of a high school on the open water.
Oh my God.
And I remember watching it, and certainly, to be honest, it's not really sexual. Sometimes, like my
Is it softly sensual, like the inauguration?
definitely what does that mean?
Oh, I think Trump said that the inauguration
Would be softly sensual?
Maybe it wasn't Trump himself, but
boy.
someone speaking about the inauguration said it would be
That's
softly
great.
sensual.
Just a woman's face being clasped gently by a tiny hand. Isn't this softly sensual? It's going to be fantastic. You know, what it is what I think is interesting about Ryan is, I have a joke about this that I haven't done in a while. I should bring it back. It's about how straight guys do know what good-looking men look like.
Despite the denials.
They love being like, I don't know. I had a
Yeah.
friend who, I don't know. I'm like, yes, you do. How do you get your hair cut? You tell them something. You're
Right.
going for something. My father, who is like a very... I don't like the term red-blooded American, as if gay people have different colored blood. But I'm just saying
Purple.
he's a real, like, kind of traditional, right across the plate guy. But when he gets his haircut, he has, who knows, a Harrison Ford, what's his name? Warren Beatty. Somebody is in there that
That's a
when he
good-looking
buys
man, yeah.
a blazer, he's wondering, do I look like Warren Beatty? So for me, and that's how I had to, because after my HBO special came out, it's the second special in a row where I used Ryan Gosling as a go-to for a man that I would fuck. And my dad just texted me like, Ryan Gosling, question mark? And I was like, this might be a little bit much for you guys. I don't know if you'll understand. Because it's not, not to be defensive, it's not that I want to fuck him, it's that I want to be him. In fact, that was my joke.
Right.
I don't want to put my dick in him, I want to go all the way in and wear him like a puppet. That's
Yeah.
I just want to be that person.
Right.
So what was your question? How did that start?
It was
La La
just,
Land.
yeah.
I thought it was fine. I don't have the fever. I liked it. I didn't get the fever.
It's interesting.
It's going to win everything, but it
Yeah.
didn't give me the fever.
I caught the fever at the very end of the movie
That
without
was the end.
without spoiling it. It was more did that do it for you?
Great ending.
Yes.
Great ending. Without spoiling it, if you can give people what you think they want and what might be true to the script, that's an impressive movie.
Right.
And that is what Val and I talked about. We were like, holy shit, they really, like, think about a movie like Up in the Air. Mm-hmm. Up in the Air, at the end, he goes to the woman's house whom he loves, and she has children. And you realize that he's been kind of having an affair that he didn't know. horrible, disappointing. Right. I'm not saying it's a bad ending. I am saying it's probably part of why it didn't do better as a movie, if you're really going to look at it from like the studio's perspective or something.
Yeah, it's interesting. It both disappoints and satisfies you.
That's what this one, we're talking about La La Land now.
Exactly.
It's like Thai food. It's spicy and sweet somehow. You're just kind of like, oh, it was both and I really liked it. So I'm not a monster. I watched it and I was like, this is great.
Like you do have a soul.
Yeah, for sure. Like, exactly. I can watch it and be like, I get it. That opening number is phenomenal. He's great in it. I've had conversations about how great he is. And Emma Stone is great.
Or maybe actually it's a testament to his greatness that he could say the term pissy caca twice. And it didn't ruin the movie for me.
Yeah.
It almost did.
Right? Ryan, again, my dear friend Ryan, he is unfairly funny. And he does things. Kumail and I were just talking about him. We were talking about that movie, La La Land, where he says, like, she's like, I can't remember exactly, but she's like, did you just refer to yourself as blah, blah, blah? And he goes,
a serious musician.
Yeah. And he goes, I didn't say that. But he says it like
a second.
He throws it away. He's the king of the X Factor. He does things that are funny because of how he's did them. Like,
right.
And he'll, like the other guys. Did you see the other guys? Mm-mm. No one saw it, I feel like. He does like 15 of them. Those things where the joke is how he opens the door and it closes on him and he opens it again.
Right.
And the timing of how he's talking while that's happening. There's like 15 of those moments. Having just done an HBO show and 8 episodes, I was trying in every episode to get one. They're so hard to get where you're like, and the way that I pick up the thing when the thing, and then this goes by and I say it perfectly. He's a like virtuoso.
Subtle physical comedy involving timing. Is that
involving time and knowing when to play it super straight, and that's way funnier. And
right.
He's so funny when he does it straight. Like the other guys, there's a line where they're looking for a dead girl, I guess, and Russell Crowe, his partner or whatever, goes, the porno star, and he goes, the young lady. The porno young lady. Like, I can't do it, is my point. Is like, I watched it and I rewound it and I watched him do it 5 times and I was like, even right after he says it, if I try and say it the way he does it, he has this unearthly timing, out of this world timing that I can't even mimic. So he's amazing.
Well, I'm on board now.
Yeah, he's great.
Maybe he learned it on Breaker High.
Breaker High! That's it.
Where he played Sean Stanley Hanlon, the wannabe ladies man / nerd.
Yeah.
What year was this? Was I in a coma?
It's the 80s, right? Early 90s?
I was here at that point.
97 to 98.
Oh.
That means I was in high school. I was a senior in high school and watched it and liked it. So deal with that.
I'm going to have to YouTube it because it sounds amazing.
It was 1 season? 2?
There were 44 episodes, so that
sounds
like a season.
That sounds like 4 seasons.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
Wow.
Clearly he's very talented.
Oh, technically it's 1 season. It was 1 44-episode season.
That's how seasons were back then.
Yikes.
Oh, yeah, because it's like daytime kids TV stuff. But my mom saw La La Land. She loved it, and now she gets it. You know what I mean? She's like, oh, I get it. Now
the
my
Ryan
mom
Gosling thing?
Yeah. She also, like her son, wants to have sex with her.
So let's talk about Crashing, your HBO show, which premieres February 19.
19.
Okay. And I was so close.
Yeah, you were very close.
A digit correct. And the correct month. So I watched it last night. My husband watched it with me. And we were both just going on and on about how much by the end, like, oh, I'm in.
Really?
And there was something so undeniable about it. And
wow.
For me, every aspect of it was there. The story sucked me in. The acting was great. It was funny. It was so well written. Because I feel like I've seen so many shows where I watch the first episode and I'm like, I'm not giving up on it yet, but I'm not in it yet.
Sure.
You know? Or like I watch it because I like the person, but how did this script get this far? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas there was, I had no reservations.
Oh, that's such a great compliment. Thank you.
And I feel like that's so rare. It's such a pleasure to know the person that created that thing because it's so much easier to be able to say all of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So I loved it.
Pilots are tricky, man.
Yeah.
I have a new appreciation for the perfect pilot. What did I just watch that I thought, 11/22/63?
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
It's the James Franco goes back, it's a Stephen King story, goes back in time to stop the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
Oh.
The pilot is like Breaking Bad level of like, holy shit, was this even a pilot or did they just buy the whole, I don't even know if it was a pilot because it's like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes and it's perfect. So now I am like you, I'm on the search for those perfect pilots. And when I wrote the pilot, people would be like, this is great. This is like a friend of mine, Tripp, was even like, this is the perfect pilot. And I read all these pilots and you don't really believe it until somebody told me something really nice, that was really applicable rather. They're like, a show exists 3 times. It's like the way you write it, the way you shoot it, and then the way you edit it. It exists. And maybe even there's the 4th way, which is the way you pictured it at the beginning. So to have it get to the end, and have it still be something that you liked is really great to hear.
So what I wondered when watching it, and you tell me how much we can reveal about it. I know a lot of your backstory, so I know that it's largely autobiographical.
In its essence, absolutely, yeah.
But I was wondering, like, how autobiographical is the pilot really? I know that you were married and your wife was having an affair. And you guys lived not in the city. Right. So, I mean, all of that is in there, but the specifics of...
That's about it.
Okay.
It's not... it's almost like I wrote a myth. I'm really into, like, myths and metaphors and stuff. This process helped me understand why people tell non-truths to convey feelings more accurately. So we could have made the show, it would have been, I think, legally a nightmare because you can't really take a true experience and just put it on the screen and be like, deal with it. You know, that's why they always have that thing where it's like any similarities are coincidental, that sort of stuff.
And then like that heavily winking, any similarities
exactly.
are coincidental.
Like the beginning of Forgetting Sarah, at the beginning of 500 Days of Summer, because especially you, Becky Dickinson or whatever. So it wasn't that. It was like I had the feeling of a guy, a religious guy who married the first person he ever dated and slept with, obviously. And then she leaves him. So I had that as something that happened. That's real. And then the way that you try and get at and convey that feeling is with a bunch of lies. You know, like the way that it comes out in the show to my parents is way bigger than what actually happened. But you're like, but it was like this.
It felt like that.
It felt like that. And that's such better storytelling than just doing, we could have done like a real indie thing where a heartbreak is like waking up and you think she's there and she's not there. And maybe that would have
like
been a
small
lovely,
moments.
we could have done that. We went like, what is the essence of a breakup when you're very inexperienced? You're not a good comedian yet. You don't know anything about the world. Like Artie says in the pilot, he goes, Babe in the Woods. We're like, that's what the show is. It's a babe in the woods. And how do we convey that quickly? So it is based on a kernel of a real thing. But it's really the emotion that I drew from the most rather than facts. Like the wife character is very different. My parents are pretty different. The guy, everybody else is very different. It's very different stuff.
It's interesting. You know, I have a journalism background and I'm very, in terms of writing, very oriented toward nonfiction and toward like, I want to translate what I just experienced into words and find like almost shine, you know, with like a prism, like find all these different angles on it that people didn't notice, but really like wring the most truth out of something that I just experienced versus my husband is much more of a storyteller, fiction, and he's always, and like I have sort of a block about my writing fiction myself. I've done it before, but it's always like, it's like a few details were changed.
Right. For the most part, it was nonfiction.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, someone else would think it was fiction, but I know.
Yeah.
And he's always saying that like if you could free yourself up, I think you would find it so liberating to write fiction because you, kind of what you're saying, you can get at the emotional truth of something. It
can actually be more effective. Yeah, it can be more effective than telling the literal story.
Have you always known that?
No, this was a new experience for me because I think initially the first draft, and I wrote I think maybe 12 drafts of the pilot. Maybe it's either 12 or 16. It was a lot. It was a lot of rewriting, a lot of showing it to Judd Apatow and getting notes and rewriting it and rewriting it and rewriting it. And if you read the first one, it was probably it was. Who are we going to ask if not me? It was
Yeah.
way more.
John Mulaney.
You probably did read it. It was way more factual. Like the names probably were even similar in some instances and all that sort of stuff. Because I was just doing it almost like a journal. Like I
Right.
remember this happening and this happening, and then slowly. That's what they always say about writing. It's killing your darlings. You know, there's this moment where you're like, well, we have to do that. I mean, that's so who we were. But then the character of the wife starts to change. It's Lauren Lapkus now. And now we're writing it for Lauren and how she's funny and how she talks and how she is. And we're changing where we live and we're changing my situation and all that sort of stuff, like where I'm at in comedy and everything, making me even newer, I think.
Right.
But it was new. I didn't expect to get an end result that was more true with fewer facts. But we need people like you. It can't all be baloney pajoni. You know, like, I don't know if you heard that NPR where the guy went to, I believe it's Shenzhen, China. Anyway, where they make all the iPhones and stuff. And he got in big trouble, and it was on This American Life, and Ira Glass really held him to the fire and was like, you fucking dick, you lied to us. I remember when that happened, because the guy told these stories. He was very eloquent, and he was like, I went and the guy took my iPad and with a crippled hand, because he had been manufacturing iPads his whole life, he cleaned my screen for the second time, you know, because that's what he did. He cleaned screens with toxic chemicals. And he talks about his claw hand swooshing back and forth. He had never seen one turned on before. And that turned out to not be true. And I remember, first and foremost, I'm not an idiot. I understand that journalism should be journalism. If I were that guy's lawyer, because he went on and he was kind of like, look, like he kind of floundered and it was embarrassing and hard to listen to. The weird thing about that story is when it came out that he was lying, that he made up a narrative, we just threw it away. You're using a MacBook. I have an iPhone. We're all using Apple products constantly because we were all off the hook. We all were like, well, you lied. So let's just go back. No, there's still nets on that building to stop people from killing themselves. He didn't make that up. He didn't make this up. He didn't make this up. He embellished. So, but I remember that story and I got the message so much more clearly because he embellished, because he made it. I wish he had said, this is fictionalized.
Right.
But
based on true events.
Exactly. But there's no category.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do what I do on my podcast and bring the Bible in, but there used to be a style of thinking that was not true or false. It was the middle way.
What was that called?
It's Semitic storytelling. It's what the Gospels are. It's what I would say the Old Testament is as well. It's this sort of like, it's about the feeling, not the fact.
But it's different than allegorical?
I think so. I'm not here you go throwing allegories at me, and I'm like,
and I don't even know what the
I
don't even know what that term means. I just mean different than like figurative or like a fable or something.
It wasn't a fairy tale. It was like, I'm telling you something true, but the facts might not be true. So when that guy told me,
that's like every story my dad tells.
Exactly. Well, dads, yes,
dads get it.
Dads are actually taking part in a rich history that human beings have.
Yeah.
It's like trying to explain something to your dog. You know what I mean? You might not use facts. Like if your dog could talk and could have that much mental capacity, or to a child, I suppose.
Right.
This is where you get like Santa Claus or whatever. You want to teach children that essential things can be unseen and goodness can be rewarded or whatever it might be. So you tell them the story of Santa Claus. Santa Claus isn't not true if you're looking at it from that perspective. Just in the same way that guy's horrible misuse of NPR's money and trust was still kind of true. Right. Yet we all just went, well, he made some shit up. Let's continue not caring about the workers in China.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, just re-release the story and be like, some of the facts have been changed into a myth, into a story. And then would be like, but for some reason we don't, going back, we don't have a category in our brains culturally for things that aren't necessarily factually true, but are true in their essence.
Right.
We want to know if it's bullshit or not. This is the age of reason. Can we build a bridge with these blueprints or not? No, you can't, but it looks pretty on the paper. Well, this is bullshit. You know what I mean? And I get it. I get it. I don't want a doctor that went to mythical medical school. You know what I mean? I don't want a surgeon that's like, they said the knife is like a toad and your belly is like the swamp and I got to get the toad and the swamp.
Right.
I don't want that.
Wait, how long do I have left? Eons. Or just a blink of an eye. Like, I need something more practical.
Exactly. But unfortunately, one of the things we're losing is that space. And entertainment can be one of those places. Like, it's fun to do a show that we say, like, look, this isn't really what happened, but it is when I watch it. And the number of people that I know that had kind of that starter marriage, especially religious people that got married because they had sex with somebody or they wanted to, more likely, that they can watch this show and go, like, that is what it feels like. It feels lonely or weird or funny in this way, even though none of it literally happened, or only some of it literally happened. That's a long way to make people not interested in my show.
No, they're going to love it.
And now a reading from Socrates.
Well, now I feel like is pedantic the right word? Because now I want to ask about
what an allegory is.
This podcast should come with a glossary.
Yes.
But like a pretty basic one.
Yeah.
Just for the words that we didn't remember. Because now I want to ask about your real life experience of these things.
I'm happy to talk about that. Yeah.
Well, so in the pilot,
IRL. Oh, not IRL.
not IRL.
In the pilot.
In the pilot, Artie Lang is a big part of it, and he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Was there an Artie Lang like character in your life?
The true impetus for the show. So the idea of the show is a young guy, youngish, is married to the first girl, like all that. His wife leaves him, and then he's kicked out. He has nowhere to go. He has no money, and he's not even good at comedy. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of caught in the unlikely safety net of the comedy scene. All these like degenerates and deadbeats, and I say that with love. These are my friends, but you know, some of them are rough around the edges, like Artie Lang, for example. So it wasn't Artie. Literally, I met Artie when we did the show. But in real life, when my wife left me, the first person I called was Nick Kroll, because I was just like, he's just one of those guys that knows everything. And you're like, does anybody have an apartment? I didn't even tell him my wife was leaving. I was just I wish I had a transcript of the phone call.
So you weren't really friends with him yet then?
We were buddies.
Okay.
That's kind of the point of the show. Again, that's one of the essences that we're trying to get across is here's a guy in one foot in the shallow end of comedy. Mm-hmm. And how many people do you know that have one foot in the shallow end of their passion, of their dream, of the thing that seems too big to dare to go for? And that's where I was, and that's where I am in the show. And then some sort of tragedy pushes you in the pool. And then Nick Kroll, who it was just a buddy, because you got your wife, you got your life,
right.
You're kind of doing fine.
Where were you guys? Were you in Connecticut?
No, we lived in upstate
New
York, off the Hudson line in Sleepy Hollow. Very weird to have your wife leave you when you're living behind a cemetery in Sleepy Hollow. You
think there really would be no one else?
What do you mean?
I just mean, like how could she meet someone else?
How could she meet Well,
you're the only guy in town.
Yeah, I know. They met back in the city. They knew each other our whole marriage. I actually knew the guy. I thought he was a great guy. I don't know him anymore. I really thought he was great. We got along well. I didn't see him often, but I don't harbor any, that fucking piece of shit. In fact, doing the show is everything I've done since actually splitting up has been trying to understand my wife's perspective. Mm-hmm. And you'll see that on the show. The character of my wife on the show is also very relatable and understandable. She's not some Disney villain in the show, and she wasn't some Disney villain in life, and neither was the guy. These were real people working out their feelings and falling in kind of inconvenient love with each other and leaving a sweet golden retriever of a man, which was me. I'm just over there making Easy Mac, and my poor wife had to break my heart. You know what I mean? I now have broken up with people that had no idea that you were going to break up with them, and it's the worst thing in the world.
It hurts my heart just hearing about it and thinking it.
It's the worst.
So you were like none the wise. You had no idea this was happening.
Well, there was, some providence in that we lived upstate. Because what happened was we were living in Park Slope, and I loved it. And I thought that was the country. Frankly, I still do. I think if you're living in New York and you live in Park Slope, it's like living in Venice if you're in Los Angeles. It's
right.
like you're 45 minutes to an hour away from the city. I know you can get the R train, and if you get lucky, you
But
can make
still,
it
there's
faster.
a totally different pace.
It's gone. It's all. I'm not making fun. It's a lot of lesbian couples and people with golden retrievers and children everywhere. That's
Right.
where everyone goes to be a lesbian, have a family, and a dog. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
And there I was, 25, 26. Yeah, 25. Actually 24 when I moved there. Anyway, so I was 24. It was a little bit weird, and I thought I was doing like a compromising thing. But then she and I used to go upstate all the time to this, I think it's called Rockefeller State Park. It's this 100-acre wood that was about an hour drive from Park Slope. So on the weekends, we would drive up there and would walk around the park and we'd be like, oh, this is so lovely. And then I could tell my wife was fading. Like she just wasn't a city person. That was literally, I considered that our only problem.
Oh.
And I really did think it was our only problem. So I was like, we're good. Our only problem is that she loves the country and I love the city. Looking back, I'm kind of like, that's a fundamental problem. That's a pretty big deal. If she, she's kind of from a rural area and wanted to run and look at deer and all that sort of stuff. And I just wanted to be affirmed and feel connected and have access to shows and opportunities and all that sort of achievement stuff. Like I needed to feel relevant very badly. I still do, but way less than I needed to because I've scratched the itch. But back then, God, I was so driven. Quietly. I didn't go around flapping my gums about how I was going to put my dick in the earth, but I was just kind of like, but if you got me drunk or something, I'd be like, I'm going to change the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I really believed in myself and wanted to do it. We used to call it lightning bolt because we'd go visit her family or whatever, and I wouldn't have done a set or seen a cab or even watched comedy or talked to a comedian, and I'd start to get really antsy, like really. Now I'm proud that Valerie and I can go to Hawaii for a week, and I'm fine. I'm better than fine. I'm like sad to go home. I'm like, this is great. And then I go home and I'm still good at stand up. You know what I mean? Like I'm past the threshold.
Well, you've accomplished a lot more now, whereas it sounds
Right.
like then you were like more in your larval form of
You need to
like-
prove it.
Yeah.
You need to prove it real hard. So I saw that she was fading, and I'm not I like La La Land. I'm not a monster. And I was like, what if we flip it? Like we always talked about, we were looking at houses that were like in Woodstock. That's like 2 hours north. Well, first of all, we couldn't afford anything there. I don't know what we were doing, but we wanted to move to the country, which seems so crazy. I was like, we looked at all these houses. I was like, oh, this one's right by the train. And I used to be like, it's only 2 hours if you get the express. Thinking the power of delusion. You know what I mean? Like we didn't want to have, I never, ever, 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 ever considered divorce as an option. And it wasn't because of some sort of fear of God or like my family will disown me. It was just like, why would we do that? We're married. Like it just,
Like you were happy with her.
I was happy. Looking back, I'm like, that wasn't the life. Like I filled in so much more. But looking back, I didn't know any better. So I was like, this is as good as it gets. We don't fight. Those, it's like, we don't fight. And I don't fight with Valerie. I'm just not a fighter. I've had one relationship where I fought with a person, but like, just the lack of problems was the biggest virtue.
It sounds like it was comfortable.
It was, there you go. It was comfortable. And that, again, that's kind of one of the things we're touching on in the show is what happens when you're kicked out of your comfort zone. And that's the only way the universe or whatever you want to call it gets our attention, the way growth gets your attention. A disruption like a pregnancy or, a breakup or a loss of a friend, loved one. All these things that we wouldn't wish on our enemies happen to us. And even though they're horrible at the time, they end up taking us where we wanted to go, where we needed to go.
Right.
Maybe not even where you wanted to go, but where you needed to go. There's a Joseph Campbell quote where he says, the treasure you seek is in the cave you're afraid to go in. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And the only thing that gets you in the cave sometimes is a tiger behind you in the woods. And then you run in the cave. You know what I mean? You never would have asked for a tiger, but once you've conquered the cave, you're like, oh, I kind of owe that tiger. That's kind of one of the things the show is about. So we moved upstate because I was like, we're not going to move to Woodstock, but what if we go in the middle ground? We'll live near the park and I'll just commute 45 minutes if you catch an express train. The truth is 45 minutes to Times Square, which is then another 20 minutes to where you're going. But, you
But
know,
still, in terms of New York commutes, that's not that bad.
it's not that bad if you're really fulfilled and happy.
Yeah.
I was with Valerie. We did some shooting near where I used to live. And as a lark or whatever you want to call it, I was like, let's go. I'll show you where I used to live. And that place was sad. It just was sad. But the neighborhood wasn't bad. I was like, if I think about like the people who probably live upstate, like I'm sure, I don't know for a fact, but like Colbert probably lives in Connecticut or something like that. Great. Because we're like drug addicts, comedians, and he has an easy fix and he bangs it out and then he's home by 6, 7 and he's in Connecticut. Who gives a shit?
Right.
You're happy. You have your needs met. You can do that. But I was like a fiend. I needed comedy and I couldn't, we got up there, we found a place and I just couldn't make it. Like I'd have an 11 p.m. show at UCB in New York. And I found myself like I'd get drunk so I couldn't go. You ever do something like that?
Yeah.
Because the day is just so long. It used to be that you were in Brooklyn and you'd walk and you'd get a bagel and you'd go to the park or whatever it was. I just thrive in a place where you walk out of your door and stuff is happening. Now I'm just in somebody else's house. And upstairs is the mom, and downstairs is the son, who's like 50 or something. So she's like 86, 70. And downstairs is the son
This is
and
who you
his
rented
wife.
from?
Yeah. So we're Oreo sandwiched between a family.
Right.
I never, one day we were there, felt comfortable. And we were there for 4 months. I never felt comfortable watching TV. I could hear them sneeze. I was just constantly on edge. His poor wife was blind and had lupus, and there was a lot of medical things going on. The house kind of smelled like bandages. I'm not putting these people down. I'm just saying.
It sounds like you're celebrating them.
It wasn't a great spot. I remember, again, Jessica St. Clair. I went out to dinner or lunch with her. She was so sweet. I just needed a friend. And I was in one of those marriages where you didn't really have too many friends, not because my wife certainly didn't cut me off from people, but we just had each other. So that was enough. Now I'm more deliberate with Val. We go out, we hang out, we see friends. We try and keep those things alive. But I didn't have any close friends. So then like Jess St. Clair went out to me and went out to lunch with me. And I remember that was one of the times, I don't want to be too sad, that I cried. I was like, the house smells like bandages because everyone in it's dying. And I just started, it was like the saddest thing. And I hadn't admitted it. This is pre-podcast. This is obviously, any way to vent and be heard.
Right.
So I was just a dying, quiet person.
Yeah.
And my wife was very distant. I wasn't seeing her very much. This is in real life, by the way. I wouldn't see her very much. And we were kind of like ships passing in the night. She'd come home. I'd be leaving. I'd be miserable. I'd come home. She'd be asleep. Fucking sad shit. I'd jerk off, have a bunch of scotch and like go to bed just because I was home alone, sandwiched in the death house and so conflicted. I had never had complex feelings before where I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
I really thought I was dead. I really did. I thought I had died and that I was in some sort of weird purgatory place because it felt like Lost. It felt like this is a dream. I would lay on my bed and try to wake up. I know that sounds crazy, but that's
interesting.
that's how far off I was.
Yeah.
And then when she told me she was having an affair.
Oh, so that's how she told you. That's how you found out.
Eventually she told me. I made it 3.5 months and I was like, we need to go. Like, I was like, I'm sorry. Like, back then we were kids. I was 28. She was 30, I guess. And breaking a lease seemed like a really big deal. You know what I mean? Like, you were like, you can't break a lease. They'll throw us away.
Charge you for the whole year.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to kill us if we break the lease. So that seemed like a divorce in itself. I was just like, we got to break the lease. I'm sorry. I'm dying up here. And she was like, okay. But it was like in this weird way. I just didn't feel close to her anymore.
Oh.
We weren't having sex anymore, really. I mean, we would occasionally, but we just like, whatever we had, if it was like a beam of light, there was just a piece of cardboard in between. It just wasn't reaching either of us.
Right.
So we're both lost. We're both in pain.
What was her job?
She was a teacher. So she was having the affair that whole time. So we moved upstate in hopes of making our thing better. I remember when we broke up, I was like, why did we move upstate? Why did we do that?
She was already having an affair?
You knew I think
Right.
it was just starting. And she was like, I don't know. I wish I hadn't. Like, I'm sorry. But why I call it Providence is it was great that we were upstate because when she told me about the affair, she took me out to dinner. We drove upstate. It was fucking terrible. Yankees traffic. Get upstate. And she had a list and she read it to me and she says she's cheating or whatever.
Wait, what was the list?
I remember the way that she phrased it. She said, I want you to be happy. Like, I love you and I want you to be happy. You deserve someone who really loves you. And I like responded. I still had no idea where it was going. I was like, thank you. I love you too. Like, just didn't know. I know. It's heartbreaking. And then she's like, I don't want to be a cheating wife. The list was called Things I Know for Sure.
Dramatic.
I know. But I really do sympathize with her.
Yeah.
I was the puppy you had to drown in the river. You know what I mean? And it's terrible, but that's fucking
Why would
life
anyone do that to a puppy?
Because the puppy didn't light your fire.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about fucking. That's the last thing I'm talking about. We were okay in that regard. Again, I clearly didn't know what I was doing as well as I do now. I just mean I've had more experience. That was the only person I had sex with.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a sexual problem. It was just like the biggest thing I learned is you don't, and I say this as much as I can, because this is a message that I feel like a lot of people need to hear. You don't have to hate someone to break up with them. It doesn't have to be ugly. I don't have to be a drunk. I don't have to hit you. You don't have to hit me. Nobody has to throw plates. Nobody has to hate your parents. Not one person wants kids, the other doesn't.
It doesn't even have to be toxic or dysfunctional.
That's
It
right.
can just be the wrong fit.
My therapist said the funniest thing. He goes, if you don't want it, you don't even have to give a reason. It can just be like, you know what? I'm going to bounce. And it's not unkind. I just love that he said bounce.
Yeah.
It's not unkind. I'm all for working through things. Valerie and I are committed to each other. We want to get married, all that sort of stuff. So it's not like first sign of trouble, like peace. I believe in investing in something. But once you've figured out that someone isn't your bliss, and you get that, it's like the easterly winds are blowing, and you're like, I think there's a better life for you and a better life for me. You can break up with somebody and even love them and even be like, that's why her list started with, I love you. And I believe that she did. And I loved her too. And I do love her. I'm not just saying that to be a good guy. I have love for her. I also have other feelings as well. Like
Right.
I'm still human. I can be like, hey, that still hurt my feelings. But I understand. So she tells me, and then she said, I don't want to be a cheating wife. And I go, so don't be. That's what I said. Then she was real quiet. And then I was like, is it somebody else? And then I asked if it was a comedian. And she said no. But I was like, clearly, comedians are the most interesting people in the world. You have to be with another comedian. It wasn't a comedian. And then the reason why, this is the long way to say, the reason why it was good that we had moved upstate was because when she told me, I was actually 80% shocked. Might have even been 70% shocked, 30% relieved.
Oh, that's so
I was
interesting.
like, oh, I thought I died. Like, I never told her that, but I was like, I've been praying to God to wake me up from this demon dimension because you, the person who used to look at me and see me, hasn't looked at me. You know what I mean? You've been gone. You've been
Right.
elsewhere. And I didn't understand.
Like suddenly it makes sense why you felt that way.
Yes. Oh, of course. Of course you cried while we were having sex the last time because you're in love with someone else. And I hate it here. Thank the living Christ that I had something to hate because I wanted to be with her. I thought I did. You know what I mean? Because that's definitely not the decision I wanted to make, but I wanted to get the fuck out of there. So it was this terrible way out. I know this is a weird analogy, but I thought of it like in the moment. There was a type of torture in the medieval ages that's so gross. They'd put a cage on you with rats in it. I'm not even going to explain this.
No, and then they like shine a light or something.
Well, they heat up the cage and the
Ugh.
rats burrow into
I didn't know
you.
that's true.
I don't know if that's true, but I felt like one of those rats. I was like, I don't want to burrow into this guy. I like this guy. No, I'm just saying it's gross, but it's my only way out. And I was like, at least I'm not in that burning hot cage. So now you've seen the show. None of that's in the show. It's
Right.
a different
It's a different
story.
Yeah, different dynamic.
But that's the real story. And then you call Nick, you call Mulaney, and then all of these friends, TJ Miller, who is on the show. Again, we don't tell the actual literal story, but like these friends, these guys, these drug doing. I don't mean like hard drugs. I mean like pot smoking, late night drinking, anonymous sex having. I don't mean like whoring it up. I just mean from my Christian early perspective, I was like, these people are philanderers. You know what I mean? They weren't school kids.
Yeah.
They weren't church boys. They took me in. Suddenly TJ's like, come with me to this movie shoot and I'll hang out with you every night and we'll hang out. And that was kind of, many years later, I was like, that seems like a show to me.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. It's
that
like
they really took you under their wing.
That's what it is. So here are these people that we know in a certain way. And Artie, by the way, he didn't literally take me in, but I have no doubt that Artie, seeing a person, the way it happens in the show is he sees me do stand-up and I'm talking about my wife leaving and he has sympathy for me. But
he doesn't think it's real. He just thinks it's a terrible set.
Yeah. Also doesn't believe it's real. Yeah. But, I know these guys. Comedians really are, and I don't say this to exclude other people. It's more to celebrate the beauty of the camaraderie of comedians. They really are like a species. And if somebody comes up to me and they want to talk, I wish I could give them my full love and attention just because they're another person. But when they mention that they're a stand-up as well, there's just this like, oh, how many tours have you done? You know what I mean? It's almost like being in the army or something. And you care about them. And that's one of the reasons I do my podcast is there's so much advice for young stand-ups is I was like, because I care about feeding my people. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want them to do well. I want them to avoid pain. I want all of us to avoid pain. But with comedians, I can help a little bit more.
In the pilot, someone suggests that you quit.
Yeah.
Did that ever happen to you?
Yes. Not as directly as in the pilot, but there were nefarious types. The show is also this exploration. The scene in New York has changed a little bit. When I was coming up in New York, it felt a little bit harsher. Of course, that could just be projection and perception. It just seemed like everyone was an Atlas-sized giant, and they were all terrifying. There seemed to be more ball breaking back then, and there would be people that would be like, you don't really have it. You got to get out of here. And they might be joking, they might not. But then there were the guys that like were not kidding. I was just talking about a guy who used to fuck with the young comedians so hard. And someone was like, why are you such a dick? And he's like, if they quit, it's one less person in my way. That's the guy's response. He died.
Would I know who this was?
What's that?
Would I know who this guy was?
I don't think so. It feels, somebody just called me on this. It's like, I feel bad because he's dead. If he wasn't dead, I'd be like, his name was Todd Lynn. He was a funny guy. He was not nice to the young guys. It might have been an act. He might have had a heart of gold. I'd like to think he did, but there was no evidence for it.
Right.
So that sort of stuff would happen. But with the show, one of the reasons why I think most people don't do comedy, most people don't want to do comedy, can relate to Crashing is because it's a field that doesn't need you. Comedy does not need you. So there was never any doubt that we would film the show in New York because New York is a good metaphor for comedy. It does not need you.
True.
You show up in New York, you drop your bags and you're like, I'm here. And the cab should just drive by and splash feces on your face because it will do fine without you. You leave, it continues. You quit comedy, it continues. It's like, there's almost penance to be paid. And that's kind of one of the things the show is about too. It's like people will tell you to quit, you're going to bomb. And that's one of the more exciting things about the show is that I've never seen a show about a new comedian. I've never seen a show about a comedian that's not good yet.
Right.
Seinfeld is just kind of a device. I love Seinfeld. I'm not saying I love Louis as well. But these shows aren't about what it's like starting in comedy. And to me, the origin story is the whole thing. I want to know what it's like when you stink and you have to fight for it. You have to beg for it. You have to beg for the privilege to stink. Can I please perform at this club? I'll do whatever it takes. And then you go up and you're not even good at it. It's the worst. You have to sign up for some open mic and then you go up and eat shit. And you have to thank them for the opportunity. It's like that for 5 years.
How did you and Judd start working together? Apatow.
What happened was the Pete Holmes show. Am I talking too much, by the way? Am I
No.
not throwing to you enough? Because I yammer.
You are talking talk all you want.
But we ping and we pong.
I know, but
And right now I'm pinging a pong on my own ping.
I like what's happening. I like it a lot. So
Okay,
this is good.
as long as you're okay.
I'm loving it.
Please feel free to interrupt.
I will. I think
know you
have
do.
been.
It's your
Yeah.
show. Yeah, you have it. I worry about that on my own podcast. I hate when I go to bed that night and I'm like, shit, I talk too fucking much. Sometimes people tweet at me. They're like, you talk too much. I'm like, I agree. I need help. Like, I'm working on it. Like, but
when
anyway.
you're a guest on someone else's show, that's when you should and can do
Buddy,
it.
I agree. I call them days off. You have a guest on your podcast and they talk. Seth Rogen, huge get for me, did the podcast, did all the talking. And I was like, this is fucking a dream. Especially with the bigger guests. You're worried they're going to be like, shut the fuck up. I want to hear Seth's story. I did. It happened. We have it. It's
Congrats.
great. Oh, it was awesome. He was great. I'm still kind of can't believe he did it. What was I saying? Oh,
How you and Judd
Apatow.
started working together.
So the Pete Holmes show, which was a talk show that I had done, I still remember when we did that live show and you were like, I want to do a talk show. They told me there's no talk shows. It broke my heart. Remember?
I remember it well. So
Yeah.
that was not the most recent time.
It was at
but,
the Meltdown.
Yeah, right before that. We did a live show at the Meltdown. You were my guest.
Yeah.
And you said that you had this talk show in the works. And I
Yeah.
had just had this soul crushing
I know.
meeting with a production
I could
company.
tell. It was such a LA moment.
Where this guy that I was meeting with, I went on so many generals and I look back and I'm like, I don't know what they were practiced for, but they were all kind of pointless because it was too early for me to be meeting with production companies because I didn't really have a show concept yet. Like I wasn't pitching,
Right.
but it would have been better if I had something to pitch. But I think he was like, so we're both sitting there kind of like, what? I feel like all those meetings, there was a lot of like, why are we both here? And
Yeah.
it's like, cause my agent set it up. I don't know.
Yep.
But, I think I don't know if he asked, but I think I said, I really want to have my own talk show.
Yeah.
And he's like, they don't give anyone talk shows anymore. Jenny McCarthy can't even get a talk show. But like, meaning unless you're a household name, you're not going to get a talk show, and even household names don't get talk shows.
I remember
and
you said
then,
that.
and then you're like, yeah, Conan is developing a talk show for
Yeah.
me. I was happy for you,
Of course.
but sad.
I didn't think you were not happy for me, but I just remember that as being like what a strange enigma show business is.
Yeah.
And you know what else your story makes me think of is I've been on so many generals as well, these meetings that are just kind of just chats. You just chat.
Yeah, but there's this expectation that no one, and you don't know what it is. That's the thing that kills me about those, is that I think you're supposed to
Yeah.
go in and dazzle them with you.
Right.
But I don't think I understood that.
You go in, oh yeah, that's interesting. You go in, it's like a date, but no one's going to fuck anybody.
Right.
Or you go in with a plate on a tray and they have a buffet, but you leave and you have no food on your plate. You're just like, imagine if I started scooping this on my plate.
Right.
And they're like, that would be crazy. Maybe in 5 years. I will say that getting a show feels exactly like a bunch of generals. Like, I'm telling you this. I remember meeting with Nick Bernstein. We had lunch. He's the guy who eventually executive produced my show. Or I don't know. I think it was an EP. He sure did everything. So he executively produced, in my opinion. We met and I was just like, it was just another one of those meetings where he was like, well, I think you're great. I've been trying to do a talk show for 10 years and I've been knocking on Conan's door. Now they're finally looking for one. And I think you'd be the great host. And we're talking and I'm like, yeah, great. I left and I was like, all right. I just went home and ate a sandwich. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, I got it. Cause I've had so many meetings
Right.
where they're like, oh, a movie with you would be cool. And you're just like, all right, dip shit. And you leave.
Yeah.
You jerk off and you go to bed. Nothing happens. So you get to the point where you're desensitized. So you had this meeting where like if it had been my first meeting in LA, it would have been like La La Land. I would have sung a song in Griffith Park. But I just kind of went home. And then I had a meeting with Conan, and that went fine. But it was just general. All I remember about it was that the first thing I said was, should I sit here? I don't want to fuck up your shit. And I was like, why did I say fuck up your shit? And then he goes, you can sit there. You won't fuck up my shit. And I was like, ha ha, we're in. He also said it. We're both culpable, in case the NSA is listening.
But they knew of you because you had done Conan's show.
The way that I'll tell it as an old man to my grandchildren, which I can't wait. It's going to be the best. So little's expected of you. It's okay that you're horny. All these things. I want to sit in an old leather chair.
Wait. It's okay that you're horny when you're a grandfather talking to your grandchildren?
Not in that situation. But I'm just talking about like, yeah, that was confusing. I just mean like old men kind of get a pass.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's true.
They can sit around. They can be who
Randy,
they are.
yeah.
It's okay if you're like, Christy Turlington or whatever it is.
Right.
Like nobody's like, they don't spray you with a water bottle. But when I'm talking when I'm talking to my grandchildren, I will tell them that I did Conan the first time and stand up and did very, very well. I didn't even realize that I had done what I would now consider very well. And then afterwards, Conan, because you think, you hear these stories, Ralphie made it, the Tonight Show gets a standing ovation. That didn't happen. And you certainly don't crush. Nobody really crushes on a late night show. You can kind of, but so I did as close as you can pretty much get. But more importantly, both of my Conan sets, I did jokes that were inclusive. That's what it was. And I went through a bad breakup. I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but I started taking better care of myself. If you watch my first Conan, I'm like 275, 280, like the biggest I've ever been. I'm essentially wearing a smock. And then the second one, you can just tell, like I did a juice thing. I just started eating fuck tons of plants and stuff. You can just tell I'm like radiating health.
Yeah.
Like I just look like as healthier than I am now by far. And I just went out and I was just like, kind of walked out. And somebody was like, when you walked out on your second set, that's why they gave you a show. You just kind of walked out like it was your show.
Right.
These are other people's words. I don't mean to butter my own bread. But I did that bit about magic. And I think I'm the first comedian in history to do a bit about how I love magic instead of being like, these fucking liars with the doves and you're calling me an asshole. You know what I mean? Or being threatened by it. And like, so I did these two positive sets. And that's what I think Conan noticed. And then JP Buck, who I remain incredibly grateful for, JP is like in the special thanks to my special, and he'll always be in every special thanks, is because he's the one that put the list together. Conan was like, I want to settle in at TBS more. One good way to do that is to put somebody, behind me. Like, let's build a franchise here. So they put a list together, and I still kind of can't believe it. I was the top of the list. And then I meet with Conan. It's just a general. I just say, I don't want to fuck up your shit. But then we just talked about Boston. We talked about being tall, whatever we talked about. It was very casual. It's another one of those nothing happened. But Conan said, he goes, I don't know what it is about you, but when I'm near you, my comedy tuning fork like vibrates. Like it starts.
Oh, what a great compliment.
I agree. So I drew on my parking pass for Warner Brothers, I drew a tuning fork with a Sharpie and I put it on my wall. And that was it. I'm not trying to be like, oh, how humble and unassuming. I'm telling you.
No, yeah, I'm not getting that at all.
Because you are, that's so funny.
I'm kidding.
No, what a good joke. But I'm telling you the way that you feel, where you're like, and you had a general, it was with Conan, it was awesome. What a thrill. But you didn't go home and go, I'm getting a talk show.
Right. I think a key difference, and granted, we have very different careers, but my generals were with people who were basically unfamiliar with me other than they'd Googled probably.
Yeah.
And I think that they were too low to be in the position. They didn't have the power to actually create anything.
No, we went on the same generals.
Okay.
We went on the
yeah.
These were the breakout generals.
Right. These were special generals.
These were outliers.
Yeah.
But they felt exactly the same.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Except you were like, well, this is a decision maker. I hate that term, but this is a decision maker.
Right.
Get
It's
me in a room with a decision
gatekeeper.
maker. Yeah. But you still left in LA, for better or worse, had taught me that nothing ever happens.
That is the lesson to be learned in this town, I think.
Yeah. Well, there's
that's not true.
I understand. There's a healthy way to surrender not, I don't mean give up. I mean surrender to like the things you can't control. And you're just kind of like, all right, this town has a tendency. Who said it? It's the only town where you can die of encouragement. It's true. So it wasn't that I was callous or jaded or even bitter, but I didn't expect anything to happen. The next meeting we had was me, Conan, and Nick, and my manager, and Conan and his producer, Jeff Ross, not the comedian, his producer. And Conan's sitting to my right, and he's like, well, we want to go to TBS and say we've been looking for a guy and that we found him. And I literally was like, who is it? I didn't say that, but I was just kind of like, I told the story later on Conan that I was just sitting there acting normal, but inside it was like midnight at Disneyland. There was just fireworks and Tinkerbell flying around because I was so excited, but also just like, wait, that's how, talk about stories, telling stories. This isn't a great story. It is. It's fun to hear the truth. Mm-hmm. But the reason why movies have those moments where I'm in some tiki bar and I just got dumped and then I get a call from a manager and he's like, Conan O'Brien wants to make a show with you. There's a reason we tell that because that's how it feels.
Right.
The truth is I'm on a couch on the Warner Brothers lot and it's kind of said nonchalantly. That's also interesting. But you're going to have to push in on me and play like, wouldn't it be nice if, you know what I mean? You're going to have to find another way to convey the emotion because the plot doesn't necessarily do it justice.
Right.
Anyway, I didn't expect to tell that story. I love talking about it. That show went for a glorious 80 episodes. Sometimes people go like, why do you think your show failed? And I'm like,
You're like, I didn't actually. I don't.
I know. Am I supposed to? But I don't see it as a failure at all. I look back on it so fondly. I learned so much, and I really had a lot of fun. Like when it used to be on YouTube, we're trying to get it back on some platform. But when it was on YouTube, I would watch it occasionally, usually while high, and I was like, "This is funny to me," and that's success. You know, you go like, "I don't give a shit. We didn't compromise. We didn't turn it into a can of Pepsi. Maybe we." Couldn't have, even if we tried. We just made the show that really was the Pete Holmes Show. This is what my interests are. These are who my friends are. These are the jokes that I like. And I could watch it. And because we did so many of them, I actually forgot the punchlines. So I'd be like, this guy's funny. I like this guy. It felt like another person. So we did 80 episodes of that. And we taped them. By the end, we were doing 9 episodes a week. And that was a lot.
Wow.
And it was because we only had the stage. There are all these cues that the network didn't really give too much of a shit about us. I'm so grateful to them, but you get these you smell a little shit in the air. And you're like, oh, they're only letting us use the stage for like 3 weeks. So we have to tape all the episodes in 3 weeks. And like the second you finish, they start tearing it down and building, Big Bang Theory sets or whatever. No offense to that show. Why am I so sensitive? Big Bang Theory sets.
They're huge fans of this podcast. So good that you said that.
I don't want to offend Johnny Galecki.
Yep.
No. I actually met him. He's a sweet guy. Anyway, we did the show. Show ends. Show's canceled. But because we taped so many in advance, it was still going to air for like 3 months. So I was in this weird place where we're not going to announce that it's canceled for 3 months, but I know that it's canceled. And then, like again in the movies, you find out your show died. You go out and drink or something. Like I'm supposed to go
have a reaction.
I'm supposed to go to Ye Rustic Inn and tell the bartender while I'm impossibly smoking inside. And the scene ends when I'm kicked out or whatever. Like, you can't smoke in here. And I'm like, I used to have a talk show. It wasn't that. Like we were in such a clean, creative space. You know what I mean? When you're making a lot of shows and you just feel that flow, it's almost like being in good physical shape. You're just kind of like, I can still run and I could think clearly. What is my idea? What is the big idea? It's not my only idea, but what is...
Like, what's the next thing? Is that what you mean?
What I mean is you're going to die, and what would you like to do? Not just what could you do.
Right.
We got an offer to continue to do the sketch show on like another smaller network or whatever. We could have done that. We could have... So the story is like, the first thing we do is we're like, well, let's just one of our favorite things we did on the show was the sketches. We were like, let's pitch a sketch show to Comedy Central. I love Comedy Central. They're not the butt of the story, but we went in, and in the small talk before the pitch, they were like, well, one thing's for sure, we don't want another sketch show.
Oh.
Like it was like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Me and my partner Oren are sitting there, and we're just like, oh shit. So we turned a pitch into a general. Like we were the ones that were like, well, we don't really have any ideas right now, but we just wanted to check in.
Yeah.
And we didn't pitch them anything. And that's when I got in my car, and I was going to drive home. One of the things I love about LA is all the time in your car. I know that sounds crazy. I think it's really good for creativity. It's some of the best ideas I've ever had are when I'm driving. And when we're writing Crashing, it takes me about an hour and a half to get to Jed's office every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in the car for 3 hours. Invaluable. Like I should be able to write off, maybe you can write off gas, but that's like my office.
Can.
I think you can too. We should look into that. But really, really getting good ideas. And so I get in my car, and it was very frustrating because I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have any prospects, anything to do. And I was like, maybe that in that frustration, I was like, what's the idea? And the idea was, well, Pete, you're a religious guy from a kind of strange family who married the first girl he ever loved when he was 22. And then she left you. And then comedy kind of saved you. And then in that moment, I was like, well, that's what's been missing is the engine of the show, which is, it just kind of hit me like a revelation. I was like, every episode's a different comedian. It was like, you stay on a different couch, you call it Crashing. Like it just kind of like came into my mind. This was a Wednesday, maybe a Tuesday. And I was just like, this is a heartfelt coming of age story about comedy. I was like, I gotta pitch it to Judd. This is where.
Did you know him yet?
He had done my live podcast. And he had done a segment on my talk show. So we had literally hung out twice or done two things together. And that was Dave Rath, my manager, knows Judd. So that was one of those things. It's so funny. I like to tease my manager, and he's just because we're friends too. So we kind of tease each other. And then I was like, but he really did come through with that Judd thing. Like he really was like, oh, I think I can get Judd on your podcast. That's why I'm like, that's why you make 10%. You did 10%. You got Judd to come to the podcast. I did 90%. That's why I make 90%, because I did a good job on that podcast. It was me, Kumail, Chris Gethard, and Todd Barry. Kumail just did a movie produced by Judd. Chris Gethard is doing a one-man show off Broadway called Career Suicide that's going to be an HBO special produced by Judd.
Wow.
And I'm doing a TV show with Judd. Todd Barry remains amazing, but he kind of doesn't make the story perfect. It should be like, and Todd is currently doing whatever. Todd is currently continuing to be an amazing, great comedian. But it was the most productive podcast in podcast history. So I was like, could we pitch him this idea? And he was filming Trainwreck at the time. And I think it was a Wednesday, and I flew on Thursday to New York to come back Friday. Because they were like, he's free. He can give you 15 minutes. Talk about a grandfather story.
Jeez.
He'll give you 15 minutes at like 6 a.m. on Friday in New York. And I was like, God, this sounds like a story. You know what I mean? You know that feeling? You're like, oh shit, I feel like I'm in a short story right now.
Yeah, like you have to go now.
It was so romantic. I don't mean obviously sexually romantic.
Right.
It was like, this is a romantic story. This is an amazing story, a classic story. And I bought the ticket. I flew out. Of course, I'm just thinking about the pitch. Went to the thing. We talked.
Did you go alone?
I did go alone. We talked for 14 minutes. In the 15th minute, I tell him the show idea. He likes it. Again, it's not like a backflip, firm handshake, my word is strong as oak, Jerry Maguire kind of thing.
Right.
It's like he goes, I like it. Let's keep talking about it. And he goes, the first thing he had me do was write a purge document, right? Everything you remember about getting divorced and getting into the comedy scene. Just freestyle, free association, 10 raw pages. And these were raw pages. I was writing about how like I lost my erection while masturbating, like real depression stories. Just like really, you're almost embarrassed to be sharing it with Judd. And I even wrote little footnotes to him. I'm like, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but like, I told my wife when she left me, if you get a dog, maybe name him Pete. Like real sad, sad shit. But I was like, dude, if you want me to bleed on the page, I'm A positive, baby. Like, here you go.
Right.
And he asked for it and I gave it to him the next day. In my opinion, obviously. You know what I mean? And then he was like, this is good. I honestly don't even know if he read it because he's a good mentor figure. It's not really about him reading it as much as it's about me doing it. Then he was like, write a pilot. And then I wrote the pilot in a couple days.
Had you written pilots before?
I had written for 2 bad TV. I don't say bad, badly received. I thought they were good shows. And I loved everybody that worked on them. But I worked on 2 badly received shows, Outsourced and I Hate My Teenage Daughter. So I had written a spec. I wrote a Modern Family spec that got me both of those jobs. And then I had written an Outsourced and I had written a Teenage Daughter. But of course, those are written collectively. I had written drafts. So I wasn't even, but when it's you and when it's your voice and you don't have to check with anybody, like, is this what this character said? Like, you're just like, I know this character. I know what my fucking dad sounds like, you know, you can do it quickly. It's like, oh, and you know, that good feeling when you're like, this is in me and it wants to come out. That's why it was so not easy. But that's why it was so fast to write.
Right.
And at this point, I'm playing the impress Jed game. I like dads. I like father figures. I like showing him how far I can throw the football, comedically speaking. So I get it to him quickly. He reads it. He gives notes. I get it. I do it quickly. And from watching Jed work with other people, that kind of has a lot to do with it. Like you want at every opportunity to show them that you're serious. I know that sounds crazy to maybe somebody listening. It's like, of course, if I had that opportunity, but things get in the way.
I look back at so many, actually not showbiz jobs, but like magazine jobs where I would be called in, and I was so young that I had this attitude of like, this is yours to lose, so just play it super cool. And then I wouldn't get the job.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's absolutely not at all how I should have played it. Because now being on the other side of things, it's like the thing that makes you want to hire someone is their enthusiasm for wanting to work with you or for you or whatever.
Like, I know, for example, it's not my story to tell, but I think it's known that Schumer did Stern. I think,
yes. And that's
Chad
how,
was like, I like what you were talking about on Stern. And then I believe she wrote a draft of Trainwreck in a week, which is just kind of insane. But like, here's what's more interesting. I don't think it's that interesting that some people that get things made got them made because opportunity knocked and they answered the door. What's more interesting to me, and I've done this, is opportunities knocked and you've been afraid. It's so easy. Again, it's not as obvious as it seems to be. Like, of course I did it. And then I did it. I'm talking about writing a document where you're like, please name your dog Pete to remember me. Not easy work. So there are
I'm
other
impressed
stories.
With the speed at which you did this.
I appreciate that, but to make it more relatable, there are other times where I've been like, this is the moment you're supposed to shine, and I've chosen to not do it because nobody's there all the time.
Right.
The alignment of your ability and your mental state, your emotional state, and to be honest, just like your sharpness. This is why it's important to always, do your craft and do stand-up. In my case, even though there's nobody's telling you to do stand-up, you do it to stay sharp so that you can hope that when the opportunity comes, now I sound like my dad, you'll be ready. But it's true, because sometimes the opportunity comes and I haven't been ready.
Right.
This was a good thing. And then Jed and I, we love the same shows. I was just telling Val, I was like, that never happens. It never happens. Part of my pitch was, I was like, Jed, I'm not bringing this to you because you can make it happen. I'm coming to you with this because this is the story. These are the types of stories you seem to like to tell. And your work resonates with me. And I think this is a good thing that we could do together. And we both are obsessed with Mad Men. We both love the movie Assassination of Jesse James. Who loves that movie? Nobody. So I'd watched so many people. Like, I remember Aziz talking to the founder of College Humor, Ricky Van Veen, and I wanted Ricky to like me so badly. We're still friends. And he and Aziz were just talking about how they have the exact same taste. And you just like that specific type of jealousy where you're like, I don't even know who the yeahs are. You know what I mean? You're just like, you feel like the kid at the dance that nobody wants. And finally you're like, it just so happens that Judd and I we didn't argue once with the show. We were like, that's perfect. Oh, this is good. He would, I don't want to say decline or deny some of my ideas, but he would sometimes move them in other directions or I'd be like, I really like this idea. He's like, I think that might make you look creepy. And I'm like, oh, you're right. And so it was a good partnership, and it remains a good partnership. I hope we get to continue being a good partnership.
What did you want to do that made you look creepy?
I wanted to tell a story about, it is creepy. It's too creepy. I guess I was going to do it on the show. It was about jerking off at my friend's house. And it just was like this time when you were so sad, and I saw him with his wife and they seemed so happy that you'd go to the bathroom just to try and do anything to make you feel happy. And it didn't literally happen like that, but there were these feelings and these surges of urges that I was like, well, what if I wrote it like it happened and I get caught and he's mad at me and jerking off in his house and his wife is using the bathroom and it's like, whoa, and I get kicked out and he's like, I think that might be something maybe they do on a darker episode of Louie. I don't know if that's what we're going to do season 1 of this show. Stuff like that.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
He protected me. He was good. He was very good like that.
All right. So let's take some questions from listeners. But first, I want to say, if you're going to buy something on Amazon, which you are because they have everything, click through the banner on my website, AlisonRosen.com. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps out the show. So thank you guys so much for your Amazon support. Also, I am on Patreon. Patreon is like Kickstarter, but you can support artists and podcasts on an ongoing monthly basis. And there's different reward levels. So you can get extra bonus episodes every month. There's an exclusive video live stream. There's a level where you, get merchandise in the mail. And for more info on that, go to patreon.com/AlisonRosen. Okay, let's take questions from listeners.
When we ask, they send them in. They're wondering how you have been. So thanks so much for answering these questions from our fans.
Okay. Brow Advisor says, what's the greatest lesson you've learned about interviewing? You two are my favorites.
Oh, God, that's a good one. I think it's trying to create a space. It's so funny because this has been like a monologue. You're trying to create a space where the guest feels, and this sounds artificial, but it is authentic, where they feel safe and they feel seen and appreciated. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my best interviews, like I just did one with Billy Wayne Davis that'll be out in a couple weeks. And you can just tell it starts with me being authentically and wholeheartedly enthusiastic that I had just listened to his album and I loved it and I wanted to talk about it and like was there with him and was excited. And that was right from the offset. It's like starting off on the right foot. But then obviously, and I got this certainly partially from Marin, is that if they're not really opening up, you open up. Mm-hmm. And even if they are opening up, you open up even more to show them that it's okay. And I've had therapists write in to me and be like, it's funny that something I say on the podcast all the time, which is you're in a safe space. He's like, that's a therapy thing. Just saying it does kind of make it true. You're saying, like when I say, do you believe in God or whatever, I like to say, and I'm not putting you on the spot, I'm here with you.
Right.
Like, let's talk about it. That's just that sort of treehouse sleepover vibe that I think you can manufacture with language. And then you show them however far they're willing to go, you'll go there with them. And if they're not there, okay, I'll be the guinea pig. So there's almost a competitive aspect to it with some guests at work where it's like, if you're not going to talk, I'm going to talk. Mm-hmm. So please talk.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
It's a bad interview if I ask a question. That's something else I've learned. I'm sorry. Where if I go like, what do you think about that? I'm like, why aren't you just talking to me?
Right. Well,
like, women are good at that. Like they talk.
I know that you have said that your podcast is a conversation, not an interview.
Right. For sure.
I think I told you that was pretentious.
It is. Some things are, and they're true.
So,
they just are pretentious.
let me ask you this. So, because I have a journalism background, when I was interviewing people for print journalism stories, the thing always for me, and this was not drummed into me, I did not learn this, it was just like a thing in me, was I got to get them to open up 1,000%, and whatever they don't want to say, I want them to say. And I will use, I mean, it makes me sound like an asshole, but like, I did it. I didn't, it wasn't articulate. I just remember in an interview, like someone didn't want to say something and I knew it was something painful. So I told a story wherein I cried and then she told me her story.
Yeah.
But like it was completely manipulative of me, but it felt genuine at the time. But I used, like, I was always very good at getting people to open up. And in a way, though, that wasn't necessary for 700 words about your band. It was just like a personal thing.
Yeah.
It was like, I can't stand people saying no to me. I need them to be completely open. Mm-hmm. As a podcaster, I have learned to rein that in. I want to create a safe space, but I also don't want the person to walk away being like, I said more than I want and I feel icky about it.
Well, that's funny too. I always go, we can edit it out.
Yeah.
It's way better to answer the question and see how it feels, and we'll take it out. And it's almost always you have 2 weeks, 3 weeks before it comes out. So it's like, we have done that before too, where it's like, hey, the way that I talked about my wife in that episode, I don't like that. Can you take that? Absolutely. We take it out. Like, and I don't even go like, because I know that feeling of waking up at 4 a.m. and being like, shit, I shouldn't have said that.
Right.
But
do you ever, when you're interviewing people, do you just want them to like let it all out, or are you ever sort of aware that they're going back and forth about whether they want to, and do you try to protect them from themselves?
Yeah, yes, sometimes. This is why, going back to Ryan Gosling, people are like, who are your dream guests? My dream guests actually, oftentimes, like Billy Wayne Davis, he is not famous. I'm not putting him down. He's pre-famous. I think he will be a big deal. He certainly has some fans. But that's a great interview because he has nothing to protect. Mm-hmm. The times that I have spoken, just in life or on the podcast, with a big celebrity, sometimes it's even harder because you're like, oh, you employ hundreds of people? Hundreds of people will lose their job. Like, that was something that I learned from watching Conan, was like, if he fucks up, 1,000 people lose their jobs.
Right.
So it might be harder to get someone like that to confess that they wanted to jerk off in their friend's house. You know what I mean? That's why I'm trying to set the precedent that is like, no, I'm a truth-telling person. That's something that I never want to lose. It's a great Avett Brothers song where they say they're here to do their thing, but if it compromises truth, then we're out of here. Like, truth is way better than playing music. And I feel that way about life. But what did you say that made me think of something?
Protecting them from themselves.
There's something
reining in the impulse to like make someone completely spill their guts.
I like saying, again, it's about complete transparency. I go like, this isn't a salacious podcast. I'm not trying to get gossip out of you, and I'm not trying to get some sort of scoop where you come out as gay on my show. And ooh, what are ratings? Not that, of course, I'm alluding to Todd Glass on Maron's. That was organic and beautiful. I don't think Mark was vying for that. And I'm not vying for it either. I want them to leave. And sometimes when I pitch it to people, I'm like, we're building a table. We're not, it's not even a conversation. I'll go even more pretentious. We're crafting something together. And when I ask them about it in an email or whatever, I always say, I want you to leave and be proud of it and feel good that it exists. And when you look at somebody like Gary Shandling, who did it and was so beautiful, and then of course he passed away a few weeks later, you start to understand the urgency and the preciousness of capturing a person in their true essence. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about promoting their show or their movie that'll come and go. It's about, imagine if we had recordings of Mark Twain, like in long form interviews, or whoever, Harriet Tubman. Imagine if you could. So we're trying to get people out of the mindset of, I'm here to promote this and get fans and get Twitter followers or whatever it is. Let's build a table, and then we'll have that table until the internet crashes and it disappears.
So are you ever bummed when people want stuff edited out, though?
I get bummed when people just aren't willing to play. They don't want to do the
Keep it crispy.
some people don't do the keep it crispy. That's happened a couple times, but they don't want to open up, and that can make me feel maybe like how you felt writing the band pieces, where I'm like, it's like the name of your show. The great ones are where we leave and we feel, not to be overly dramatic, but you feel a soul connection and you're like, we could be friends. Mm-hmm. And that happened, like Ben Folds was a great episode. And 5 minutes in, we were just like, oh, me and Ben, I didn't know that me and Ben Folds were like similar people.
Right.
We don't hang out. And that's just because life goes that way. Like we both were like, let's hang out. I don't take it personally. I think he's great. And that happens a lot. And now I take that when I come home and Val asks how the podcast was, it's either we became friends, and I mean like blood brother friends. Sister.
Right. Like I want to text this person a lot.
Exactly. I'm invested in their story. Or I go, this is my code for it wasn't my favorite. I go, people will like it. Like the fans will like it. And they do. There are episodes where I'm like, I just couldn't find them. And they're like, that is the best You Made It Weird I've ever heard. And that's an important lesson is you're like, my own personal gratification or validation isn't really a concern for the audience. I say to Val, I'm like, I like ones where they're brilliant and I'm brilliant. You know what I mean? Like I want us both to shine. And the ones where I'm not brilliant, but they're brilliant, that's fine. The ones where I'm brilliant and they're not brilliant, that's more of a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's where I get the tweets where it's like talk less. And I'm like, you don't understand. I would like to talk less.
Yeah.
I would like to talk less. I'm trying to get them to open up. And some people are just like, they're cool, man. They're zen. And they're like, look, if you want to flap your gums, that's fine. I'll be over here just whatever, baking my own bread and looking at the swallows.
I have had it happen, not often, but with guests where I'm trying to get them to tell a story. So I will tell a story from my own life that I think is similar.
Yeah.
And then they'll just start asking me questions about my own story. And I'm like, oh, I needed to. And then I go,
well, I just go, don't interview me.
Well, then I think, oh, they are not getting what I'm doing. Why am I being indirect? I should just say, tell me about this.
Yeah, I hear that. But you know what's funny? This is what I was
I'm not
tell
building
you.
a table, though.
Well, this is a nice table.
Well, thank you.
When
Maybe I am.
I die, people will listen to this and be like, that's what Pete was like. That's fine.
All right.
That's nice.
I'm glad
this
my
table exists.
own version of, so if you're building a table, what am I building?
Like a bouncy house. It's fun. It's colorful. I don't know. You didn't seem to like that answer.
No.
A chair.
Okay. Yeah. Like a chair and a half, though.
Neither of us know how to make
Furniture?
houses or furniture. But here's what I was going to say to your tactic. And again, it's become less of a conscious thing. I think when I first started, it was like I'll overshare in hopes that they share. Now, if I tell a story and they ask me questions about the story, I'll joke that they shouldn't interview me, but then we can talk about that if they want. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the more you can let go of any agenda, the more likely you are to kind of achieve your goal.
Right.
But there was this thing on NPR, again, I listen to a lot of This American Life, I love it, where they did these surveys where they would be like, from a scale of 1 to 10, how against abortion are you? And they'd be like, I'm a 10. I don't think anyone should ever get an abortion, even if it's going to, it's a rape and it's going to kill the mother and the baby's only going to live 2 weeks. I don't care. You have to have the baby. Though 10 out of 10. And then the woman doing the survey, and they recorded these. It's great. Great listening. The woman then tells a story about how she got pregnant when she was 16 and wasn't ready for it or whatever. And it was, maybe it was sexual abuse or something. And they, like you, get rightly emotional, and the person listening. And then, so it's not just manipulation, but they talk. It's kind of like if you're ever kidnapped, God forbid, you're like, my name is Peter. Mm-hmm. I'm from Boston.
Right.
My mother's name is Irina. Like we had 2 cats growing up. Like these are ways that it's so gross to talk about, but people have gotten out of those situations is because you're trying to not be anonymous. You're trying to be like, I'm like you. You're just screaming, I'm like you. I'm also here with you, and I understand, and please don't hurt me. Similarly, these people tell these stories about their personal abortions. Forgive me, I don't remember the specific details, but I do know that they tell the story, they chat, they gab like gals, they have a nice little gab, And then at the end they go, would you mind if we do the survey again? And one of the questions is scale from 1 to 10. 1 being anybody can get them, 10 nobody can get them.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And they go to 1. They go, I think
that's so cool.
everyone should be able to get an abortion. So that's in the same chat.
Yeah.
So there's something going on. It's not as slimy as it seems. It's more about establishing a secure connection with somebody. It's about resting,
It's about relating.
Allison, you're here alive at the same time I'm alive. We both wake up. We both have needs. They're either met or they're not. We're tired sometimes. We're pregnant. Sometimes we have to pee. Whatever it is. But what a phenomenon that we're here together.
Right.
And the more that we can remind each other that we're all in it together, the more we set aside our agendas of, well, I don't talk about those things, or I believe these, or I'm a Republican, or I'm a liberal, or I'm this and that. That all kind of goes away, and it just becomes two people in suspended air really connecting. And I would say that happens on every third podcast of mine. And we go for it every one of them.
Every third is a pretty good.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's a really good batting average. I just have to clarify that. What?
Some butter.
What if that's going to be the way I finish that sentence every time now? I'm going to make some ghee. I don't know what that is, but
very good.
I have to
Very
clarify.
good.
There have been numerous times on this podcast that I have cried while talking to a guest, and those have all been genuine. Sure. The story I told earlier was interviewing someone for a magazine. It was a million years ago, and that was a sort of not entire. I sort of squeezed some tears out to get her to reveal something.
Oh, interesting.
But on the podcast, because I do it differently. Those are all genuine tears. For real. Because I realize I sound like an asshole. Because I don't want people to go back and be like, oh, but I remember when you cried then. Was that phony? No, that was
I understand.
real.
We're all trying to figure it out. But the more you do it, the more you let go of any method.
Yes.
And you're just trying to talk. And you're not thinking, boy, I wish they'd talk. It's like getting better at fucking. You're not like, boy, I wish I was really getting this reaction. You just be there with the person.
Just be present.
Be present, yeah.
Don Roman, what's your response to those that assume you're gay?
I wish there were.
Do you get that a lot?
No, I'm not aware of gay rumors. That's an interesting question. I would be proud to be gay. I think that should go without saying. So if every once in a while you check in the folder, you're like, am I gay? No, I don't think so. So I wouldn't consider it anything to be ashamed of, obviously, or hide from. And I've surrounded myself with loving people who love me for me. And basically, even beyond comedy, what I do full time is explore who I am. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds selfish, but something I say on my podcast is like, just try and change yourself. Just try and work on yourself. Who else are you going to work on? Someone else? I'm going to work on I'm going to work on my dad. The fuck
That's
are you
a recipe
about?
for being miserable.
Exactly. You can work on yourself, and I do a lot of introspection and work on myself. So if I were gay, I'd like to say it very publicly. I would be proud, and it would be a interesting story that I wouldn't resist to be like, boy, I really thought I was straight until I was 37. Then one day something clicked, and now I am gay. I wouldn't resist that. And if there are gay rumors, I'm okay with that. Let's get some gay rumors going.
You want to have kids, right?
I do. Yeah.
Do you think when you have kids, you will have less time to work on yourself and do self-exploration? And I ask that as someone who's about to have a kid in the next, in a matter of weeks. 20
minutes.
It's a matter of weeks, or it could be during this podcast. Because I do not know what's on the other side of that in terms of where my focus will be. I know that being pregnant, has really career-wise sidelined me in a way that I'm not comfortable with but accepting of. Yeah. But like even, my dream of having my own talk show, sometimes I'm like, how much is that even my dream anymore? But it doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like more just being like, I'm accepting whatever comes my way, I'm sort of accepting of it. I'm not trying to force anything to happen anymore. Right. But I do have this fear that once the kid is here, who will I be? And everyone tells me like, you'll be the same person. Right. But it is like, but I'm already changing.
No, I understand. Okay. I don't have children. But it seems to me that everything's going to change. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that to both of us.
Right.
And I'm speaking as someone who considers that. Okay, we have kids. All of a sudden, there's another thing that my friend Rob Bell said, like, it's like your heart jumps out of your body and has legs and runs around. So clearly your priorities are going to change. What you said made me think of something. I quote Ram Dass endlessly. He's a great writer, teacher. He said, when you're too busy thinking of what could be, you're missing out on what is. So when I hear you saying, like, I'm going to have this baby and maybe your priorities will shift, of course, what lunatic would go, don't give up on your dreams? I hear someone going, this is what's happening. And I happen to be of the opinion that, yes, will it be harder to meditate, find quiet time to meditate, or I love to sit in the sauna and listen to audiobooks or whatever the fuck I do. Yeah.
Do you have your own sauna?
I do. Yeah.
Congratulations.
If you have $7,000, you can buy an infrared sauna, and I highly recommend it if you have a garage.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know where I would put it, but
you can get a small one that would literally fit right here. And
in studio sauna.
I highly recommend it.
It would be murder on my hair, but I get what you're saying.
I wonder.
You could get a dry sauna.
These are dry. Infrared means it's not actually hot in the sauna. It heats you up with infrared rays, which sounds suspicious.
Sounds like it's microwaving you.
No, I know. I did a lot of research. I bought what is it called? The things people use to detect ghosts.
A Geiger counter?
It's like a whatever, the bad rays. And I scan mine for the bad rays. There's no bad rays coming out of it. Anyway, I love that. I use that. There's a lot of me time. I go to therapy. I read and all blah, blah, blah. I sit on the porch and just stare at trees. Yes, having kids is definitely going to take a big bite, if not eliminate most of that.
Right.
But I am of the opinion that everything viewed from a certain perspective is working together to help your awakening. And I don't necessarily mean reaching nirvana. I mean, it's the work that you're to do.
Right,
so
like your self-actualization.
Exactly. So authentically and presently and passionately having children can absolutely get you to the same place that fasting and meditating in a cave could get you. That's not me saying that, by the way. I believe that, but that's something I read over and over again. It's like, if you're a carpenter and you fully presently engage in what it's like to build a shed, the mysteries of the universe will be revealed to you. So whatever it is we're doing, if it looks holy, if it looks like self-improvement or not, this is the universe welcoming us to the work that we're to do. And no karma, or whatever you want to call it, is more clear than an infant. Here it is. You said yes to it, and it's going to change you, and you're definitely going to change the baby. You're raising the baby. But that's the work. I don't see as much of a separation between the stuff of life and the stuff that's like helping us out. It's like, it's called karma yoga. You're living your life. You're waiting in line at Whole Foods, and you're allowing that to be an experience that is either moving you towards truth and wakefulness or illusion and deceit.
Tell me if you relate to this, because I had this experience recently. I had two experiences that were very similar. I had a baby shower, and there were people from...
It's raining babies in here.
People from all these different chunks of my life were there, like really good friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I felt like it was so great to see them. And I walked away from that thinking, I feel like I've positioned myself these days as this person who like doesn't have a ton of has a lot of friends, but I'm not that close with them. And I'm kind of reclusive, and I'm a homebody. I don't really go out. I'm a little bit socially awkward. And I was like, I don't think that is a version of me, but it's not who I really am. Who I was around these people that I went to college with, these people that I knew in New York, these people that I knew when I lived in Orange County and played in a band, like that's more, it was like these authentic bits, like shards of authenticity of me in that room that I'm no longer in direct contact with. And it made me think like, I need to connect with that more. And then recently I saw a couple of friends from college again, and I had that reminder.
Wait, you missed those shards of yourself?
Yes. And I have allowed myself to just be like, I check Twitter all the time. I check Instagram, but I don't really go out. That's who I am. I'm a real introvert. And like, obviously the way I've fashioned my life now is true, but it's not the whole story. And I really was like, and this is so ephemeral. I was actually just talking about this. We were talking about New Year's resolutions on my podcast, and I was just talking about this. Like, I really want to integrate with these older versions of me that feel more like I want to be the most authentic version of myself, and I don't know that I am right now. Caveat: once the baby comes, I'll be like, haha, remember when I cared about that? Okay.
Sure. Right.
But for you, I know that you have, transitioned from in a more stark or dramatic way than I think a lot of other comedians. You were this one person, and now you're this totally different person.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's just been forward momentum? Like, are there
things that I miss?
Yeah. And do you feel like who you are right now is the most authentic version of you?
I do, but isn't that how it always feels? You're like, this is me, baby.
Until you run into a bunch of people from your past, and you're like, now I feel very weird, but good, but weird.
I understand. I wouldn't say that I've had that experience. When I hang out with people from my past, I go, oh, I used to be less clear than I am now.
Yeah.
I used to be playing a part. I thought that I looked like a soft, doughy, awkward, loud, chubby-faced, gap-toothed, loud-mouthed class clown kid.
Were you gap-toothed? Because your teeth are so perfect now.
No, I know. I had really nice dental work. But, you look in the mirror and you go, oh, that's who I am. And then your friends and your family, they go, that's who you are. And you're tall. You probably play basketball, right? You're like, yeah, I probably play basketball, And then you hang out with your friends and they like certain things. And you're like, I kind of like those things. And next thing you know, you've built this sandcastle that is who you think you are. I always liken it to building a sandcastle underwater, though, because life changes and then where to go? Where did I go? That I actually think what you're saying is fairly profound from a spiritual perspective, because people are so certain when they're like, I like whatever. I like chicken. You know what I mean? Or I don't like going out.
Right.
Or I'm not an exercise person, or I'm shy, or I'm confident. Well, which you? That's one of the things. That's one of the first steps to me to waking up in a certain way, in a sense, is realizing just how ethereal you are. You're just like, oh, there's all these sets of preferences and aversions and attractions, and I like and I don't like, and then you realize as you get older that all of these things are coming and going. And you're trying to hold on to the ones that are really, really true, and let go of the ones that aren't true. But I haven't had the experience where I hang out with people and I'm like, except I'll give you this. So Valerie and I want to get married. I've been very open about that. I'm madly in love with her and we want to get married. And I was like, it's funny. I catch myself, the part of me that got married the first time wasn't afraid at all. And I'm not afraid of Valerie, but I am afraid of thinking of my life in 50 years. It's frightening to go, and in 50 years we'll be here and our kids will be here. I just get overwhelmed. I don't want to plan for 2 weekends from now. Forget about 50 years from now. So I get a little overwhelmed at the idea of thinking about your whole life. When I got married the first time, we're just talking about this today, I was in the groom room with my friend Daniel and I just wasn't nervous. Like I was just like, it's a little embarrassing. I was like, my mom was like, you should get married, and Christians get married if they have sex. And I'm going to move to Chicago. What am I going to move to Chicago with my girlfriend? That's living in sin. So it seemed very clear and laid out. And that's all kind of fucked up and muddled. But then there was also a purity to that. It was almost like I was pure as the driven snow. I was like a dove. And doves aren't afraid. And they're just like, I love this other dove and I'm going to be with them. And I was like, now that I'm thinking about getting married again, I'm like, I'm going through the rubble of who I used to be, looking for a dove wing. Just enough of that purity, just enough of that innocence that I can, while I still have it, while you feel the temptation, not regularly, but I felt the temptation in the past, usually before Valerie, to just be a guy who will be on TV and he'll have some money and a little bit of notoriety and I'll get laid and nobody will tell me not to drink or smoke pot. And to quote W. Kamau Bell when he did my podcast, it's like, I wish my Xbox had a pussy and I just fuck my Xbox and order Postmates and just kind of be out for myself. And I see a lot of people in my field make that choice. And I think maybe it's because they went digging for the dove or they didn't go digging for the dove. I want to find that part of me that had some faith and had some goodness and had a little bit of naivety that was just kind of like, no, it's okay. Like, follow your heart, trust yourself, trust the world. And I was glad that I was able to find that. I was like, I'm glad I still have this. It was almost like a reading. I was like, I still have 13% pure dove in me.
Right.
Even after all the drugs and the fucking and the drinking and bumming cigarettes in Boise, Idaho after 2 shows that I talked about my dick or whatever it was. There's still some of that me in there. And I'm like, okay, I need that. I'm going to use that to get married.
No, I feel like that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Actually, because it's like it was remembering who I was before all the things in my life.
Before showbiz.
Yeah, before show, but other stuff too. The sort of like different little tragedies that felt like big tragedies in my life at the time.
That's right.
Of like things that made me be like, oh, don't get that close to people. They can hurt you. Don't.
The reason I said that's right is because you build the wall.
Yeah. I started building all the self-protection walls and started questioning everything in this way that before I grew up, really. Yeah. Like I'm a grown up now, but I don't want to, I miss that exuberance of who I was before.
Remember when I have a vivid memory of being a young kid about knee high and my parents having cocktail parties. And I was just like, why do they talk that way? Well, what are you investing in these days, Jay? Well, I don't really do a stock market. I like real estate because it's real. And a fake laugh, and they fake laugh. And you're just down there like, you're a kid. You talk like Trodelodio, and you slap an ant, and you fucking do a barrel roll down a grass hill. You know what I mean? You're there, and you don't understand. And the reason is because we start to get scared, and we build up these defenses. Mm-hmm. And our ego was one of them, and our personality is one of them, and that's why it's comforting to be like, I don't trust Asians. You know what I mean? Because the world is frightening to you, and you go like, at least there are no Asians at this party, and we're all doing these fucking stupid things and really standing firmly, thinking our underwater sandcastle is a real thing, and building the wall that keeps out the bad stuff, but it also keeps out a lot of the joy and the light.
Yeah.
And that's one of those, Leonard Cohen? Did he write Hallelujah? Yeah, Leonard Cohen.
Yes.
He has that great line about like the cracks are how the light gets in. So we have these walls, and that's kind of, again, what crashing is about. You build these walls, you have your comfortable life, then you get some pain, and it cracks that facade, or maybe an experience cracks that facade, and you start to get some of that sunlight on your skin again. You're like, shit, I used to be a little kid running around in the light. I was a dove. So I understand that, but I do think I'm a little bit guilty of going the other way, of looking back and going like, look at these idiots. They don't even know this, or this. That's my own ego.
I mean, you have, like I said, a more, did you just say it's your own ego?
It's my ego, yeah.
But I feel also in listening to your story, like you kind of have moved, this is my own judgment, moved from darkness to light. I mean, I was in a place where I claimed to have a lot of answers, and it was very liberating to have those answers not work. Right. It was like that feeling when, you knock over a Jenga thing and it's just kind of like, oh shit. But that kind of is a fun part of the game. And then you rebuild it. I'd like to think I'm rebuilding it better. Sometimes I think in 10 years, am I going to look back at the answers that I'm giving you now about karma and about karma yoga and being like, life is going to give you the lessons of the universe if we're doing them consciously. Will I look back and think that's stupid? The reason I don't think I will is because of the people, the wise people that have gone before me, that spent their lives looking for this stuff and have kind of come to those conclusions. But there's a chance I could look back and be like, what a fucking pretentious shit. This is something Jed says. He's like, just talk about how funny the show is. Would you please not mention Ram Dass or Joseph Campbell? Does he really say that? He's breaking my balls. Like, he's kind of lightly teasing me. But when we pitched the show to HBO, I'm talking about Christ. I'm talking about the hero's journey and all that stuff. He's like,
say it's funny and that it's going to have a lot of comedians being funny. And all that other stuff is there if you want to look for it. But that's what I think gives the shows that I love an interesting backbone, is just a hint of like, oh, I think there was a little bit of transcendence in there. I think there's a little bit of truth, just a little bit. And it's not preachy. It's not telling you to quit smoking. It's telling you we're all in this together.
Right.
That's what it's saying.
Right. Let's do a fast, just me or everyone.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
Okay, remember, this is where people write in with things they think or do, and they wonder, is it just me? Is it everyone? And we weigh in.
Okay.
Laura Wilhite says, I always wanted a job where I can answer the phone with just my last name.
It's everyone.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one kind of in the same ballpark. I don't know if this is true for women. You can represent all women.
Oh,
but
please.
I've never met a guy who didn't want, you'll represent men, that didn't want to come out in Vegas in a tuxedo and sing the opening lines of a song and have the band kick in.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I haven't had that desire, but I can relate to it.
Doesn't that just make sense? But the idea that you can answer the phone, go, you know what I mean? That's a good one.
Right.
Holmes isn't a good one, but what's her last name?
It's Wilhite.
Wilhite.
I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
This is Wilhite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
It's very
I
like
feel
Law and
that's
Order
everybody.
SVU.
Yeah. But I get no kick from champagne. Audience applauds and then the band kicks. Oh,
Yeah.
The lights come up.
Sarah says, have never finished a tube of chapstick. Yeah, I don't think I have either.
Good point, Sarah. You're going to lose it. Well, you do get to that point where it's just so raw
Right.
that you're just rubbing the plastic
nub.
rim.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
You're just
nub
exfoliating.
action. But some people, I think, will go real deep and they'll start putting their finger on that and then applying it. But I've never gotten to the bottom.
I have not either.
I'm going to call that everyone.
Riza, but I don't think it's the Riza, says, when I was little, I thought to taste in recipes meant add those ingredients only when you taste it while cooking. I have never heard
Add those ingredients only
when you taste it while cooking. Like add it, like as opposed to taste, which actually means like to your liking.
Yeah. Whatever you think is right.
Yeah, I think this person thinks it meant like just add it till you can taste it.
Oh.
I bet you're not the only one.
I bet you're not.
But not me.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, I get it.
John Clifford says, wish everyone would go with 2017 instead of 2017 when referring to the year.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah.
I
haven't
get
heard
it.
any 2017s.
Can I throw in?
Please.
Never call 911 911.
Who does?
Every once in a while.
Really?
Every once in a while.
That's
I get
wrong.
that. And that's when it's usually someone foreign. And that's when 911 happened. First of all, you call
You're talking to the
11-9.
Beatles.
Yeah. I'll agree with that. I'll say that's everyone.
Yeah. Leela Rolling Stone says, have to pee badly, finally get to the bathroom and have sudden fear that I'm actually having a have to pee dream and am peeing the bed.
Oh,
I've never
very
had
nice.
that.
I think her name's Leela. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. I love that name. I think that's great. I think one of the key things we should be doing all the time is asking ourselves if we're dreaming. That's one of the ways you can train yourself to
lucid dream,
lucid
right?
dream,
Do you do
exactly.
that? Are you able to do it?
I do that. I love that. It's a great reality experiment. Because when you lose a dream, you're like, holy shit, this is exactly like reality. I mean, I don't mean it's kind of like reality. You're like, this is reality. I've been in dreams where I'm like, fuck, holy shit. And then it disintegrates because I get too excited.
Right.
My heartbeat goes up and everything goes to shit. But I know what she's talking about, but I've never done it the other way. I've peed in dreams and realized, oh, I'm dreaming that I'm peeing.
Right.
I have to get up.
Yeah, I have.
I love that she's doing it the other way.
I've had the realization in a dream that it's a dream.
Yeah.
But I've never questioned reality, although I have felt strongly like this feels like a dream,
Yeah.
or I wish this were a dream, or this is all dreamlike. But I've never actually wondered.
Yeah, you just look at your hands. That's what I do.
In lucid dreams, what do your hands look like?
They look like catcher's mitts. They look terrible. You're really bad at conjuring up your own hands.
Mm-hmm.
So if something happens and it's very surreal, even if it's mild, You either look at a clock, because you can't read in dreams typically. Some people argue against that.
Right. I
'Cause
have
it's
read
left
in
brain,
dreams.
right brain. I think you think you're reading.
Okay.
I don't mean to, that sounds so pretentious, but it's like you're dreaming that you're reading. But if
Right.
you're lucid, you can look at a clock and it looks like it's TS5 and then the infinity symbol, not an 8, an infinity symbol on that side. And that's a clue that you're dreaming too. But your hands are a clock. I don't think this one's true. It doesn't work for me. Turning on a light, and if nothing happens when you turn the light on, that's a try. But I've also turned on a light in a dream, so that's not always true. The hands is a good one.
So the point is to train yourself to begin to ask, is this a dream?
Yeah.
And then once it is, then you can start controlling the dream. Is that what lucid
if
dreaming
you
is?
identify that you look at your hands and they look weird, you go, oh, this is a dream. And then you have a couple choices. You can continue in the narrative of the dream, but do it consciously. This is why it has these real life applications. And I think that's the most valuable thing, is it makes you more present and aware. People that are kind of sleepwalking through life, which we all have, aren't wondering, is this a dream? They're just accepting everything as it is, which I think is a dangerous and uncreative way of existing. But questioning things and wondering, that's why I like her question. If you're peeing and you're like, wait a minute, am I asleep right now? I think that's great. Because one time you will be, then you can get up and fly to Paris and fuck George Clooney.
Is that what you've done in your lucid dreams?
Very hard to have sex. It's really hard to have sex. Typically what I do in a lucid dream is as little as possible, because if you fly or something, you'll get excited and you'll wake up. So you try and stay calm and maybe talk to somebody, or it depends on how firm of a grasp you have of it. But typically, and this is one of the great lessons it can teach you too, is when you're in a dream, you're not judging it. You're there and you hear, let's say, a cat, like a stray cat meowing, and it's that annoying kind of cat call. You're not annoyed by it. You're like, holy shit, that sounds just like a cat. What you have fascination with it. And if we could only have that sort of approach to our waking life, instead of judging everything, just observing it and going, what a phenomenon. This cushion looks look how when I touch it, it kind of changes the fact. I wish I could be more like that.
It just sounds like meditating while you're asleep, really.
Well, that's what the Tibetans do. They're like, look, you sleep 8 hours, 6 hours a night. What a waste, unless you're trying to do it consciously. And this guy, he's a Lama named Lama Suryadas, did my podcast, and he was very interesting. He was talking about how they try and remain conscious while they're falling asleep, meaning they're like, I'm almost asleep and I am asleep. Like there's no break. And all of it, and this is something I like to point out, because I think meditating and yoga or whatever it might be kind of gets this reputation for being soft or something. It's like, some fucking LA hippie doing meditation and eating kale. I understand. I see what you're saying. But at the same time, these are people that are training every day to remain conscious when they die.
Yeah,
that is
there's quite a discipline to that.
Exactly. Like meditating, your butt hurts. Okay, that's good practice to remain associated with your awareness and not your body. So when you're dying and you're choking on your own fluids, death is fucking grisly. If you can stay in that calm place where your awareness is just like an unflickering candle, that's fucking bad ass. That is a beautiful death. And we all do it. I think there's something about doing it and trying and having it being a goal of your life to not die in fear and shitting your pants. I'll let you know how I do.
Please. If you can let me know, then you did well.
Yeah, exactly. I'll come back in a dream. Or I'll knock over your Dasanis.
I really feel like that's the profound thing we should end on. But instead, I'm going to say, Jane Montgomery says, use
Jane.
cheap plastic non-scratch pot scrubbers as the best exfoliating sponges ever in the shower. Yes, on my body. No, I've never done that.
I think Jane knows that no one does that.
Yeah, maybe.
But just like everything, people say things and they go, do you love me? It's like advertising. Mm-hmm. Why do we love advertising? It's one of my favorite lines in Mad Men. He goes, every ad is just whispering, you are okay.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm not saying that she's needy. I'm saying there's just like kind of a lovely opportunity to be like, yeah, that sounds great, Jane.
But I feel actually to get a little bit deep and also self-congratulatory. I do feel like that is what this segment is. This segment is like,
Absolutely.
here's something weird. Am I alone? And even if you are, you're okay.
Yeah. And isn't it a good feel? That's what comedy is. When I go, I was at lunch today with Val and there was a balcony above us, not a balcony, but like a raised level of the restaurant. So the guy above us is right there. And at one point he leaned over the railing to our table and coughed. Now, that's not quite funny enough to do as stand-up, but even you laughing, I'm like, I'm not alone. That was crazy.
Yeah.
That's why we love Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's like, oh, you did that. Somebody finally giving voice and going, I've done that. I see that. And it's a beautiful thing. The more unified, that's why comedy that is dividing, that it's almost like making it us and them. Mm-hmm. Like think of racist jokes or sexist jokes or homophobic jokes. It's just, again, perpetuating division.
Right.
It's such an ugly thing. It's such a wasted opportunity for everyone to leave a little bit more truthfully, not advertise bullshit. I just want you to buy Yoo-hoo so I make you feel loved. But you can actually leave going, I thought I was alone, but I had a good laugh. And now I don't feel as alone because that man or woman on stage was loud and bright. Lights, microphone. Mm-hmm. They were loud and bright. They were the leader of the pack. And they told me that they're afraid to die. And now I feel less alone. And that's beautiful. Or you can go up and be like, you ever see a fag? It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I hate using that word, but you understand what I'm saying.
And I do.
Fuck you.
I mean, but to me, that's when I'm watching comedy, that's the difference between like a haha, that's clever, or like a true visceral belly laugh. The true visceral belly laugh is, well, also sometimes stuff that is so silly or absurd will make me laugh that way. Like in your HBO special, I'm going to get the words wrong, but Derschnecks or Derschnecks.
Oh, double snakes. Yeah, double snakes. Yeah.
Right, but
Derschnecks.
Yes, that part. I forget if I told you this or not. I literally, because I'm pregnant, literally peed my pants during that part. I was laughing so hard.
You did not. I would have remembered.
I literally did. I had to do the thing where I'm like, and I like run to the bathroom, try not to let my pants really touch anything, but because that part was so silly.
I'm so honored.
But that like visceral laughter for me is usually it's the recognition.
Yeah.
It's the like, yes, people don't normally articulate this, but I have that too.
Right. And there's something magical about going a moment that a lot of people, because that joke took place waiting in line at Starbucks, would tune out, look at their phone. I do this too. I'm not saying other people. This is all of us. We look at our phones. We try and think, I'll be happy when I have my coffee. Mm-hmm. I'll be happy when I have my cookie. I'll be happy when this plane lands. I'll be happy when I'm out of traffic. I'll be happy when I'm done with work. I'll be happy when I'm in bed. I'll be happy when I'm eating. I'll be happy when I'm having sex. It's always later.
Yeah.
But there's something I think going on about I was in line. So it's a place of lack. Clearly I need something. I'm in line for it. And there was life. It was hiding. It was there the whole time. And I struggle with this all the time.
What was it that she was trying to say?
Can I help? Who's next? Dow Snacks. And I was with my opener, Chris Thayer. He opened for me for years, and he looked at me and he was like, you just wrote a bit, didn't you? He knew that was my sense of humor.
Just based on her saying that.
She just went, Dow Snacks? And I was like, oh my God. It's all these things. It's not just missing sunsets. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're missing a lot. And that's okay, but it's nice to just get your head above the clouds for a second and hear someone go, Dow Snacks? And you're like, I'm going to tell tale of this hundreds of times. And here's the best thing. That woman who said it has no idea it was her. Yeah. She'll never know. She has so many fans, thousands of fans of that person. And she's just somewhere in a Midwest airport still going, Does not. She could speak fine, by the way. Sometimes I do that bit and I feel people pull away.
Right.
Because
she was
think
just
I'm making
rushing.
fun. She was like, in the bad way. She was just like, hey, Does Snacks. What are you? Duh, Snacks! Right? I'm very proud of that bit. That's a bit that I'll be sad that I the rules of stand-up I can't do anymore.
Can I help? Who's next is what she was trying to say.
Can I help? Who's next? And then I go, break it down. Can I? Duh. Help who's next. Snacks. Duh, Snacks. Oh my God. We almost called this special Double Snakes, but it made no sense until after you saw it.
Well, Pete Holmes, thank you so much for coming by.
You do it? Did you just do it?
No, I just moved a highlighter.
Oh, I
Jeff
thought it was
did.
like that. That was your remote. I was like,
how cool would that be?
Wow. Thank you. I'm honored. I love Yammer, and I hope your guests are okay that I monologued a little bit.
My guests will love this.
I hope
this was
so.
a wonderful episode. Later, when I see Val, I will not say about this one, they'll like it. Even though I think
They'll
they will.
like it. It's so dismissive. The audience will like it.
That is what's funny though, because if I were to say that about an episode, that wouldn't mean that I didn't think it was good.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean that I don't think it's good as much as it's like I didn't get there.
Yeah, that
the
I know.
episode
Yeah.
got there, but I don't think I got there. Everybody knows. It doesn't, even if you don't host a podcast, we've all had those moments where you're, lingering at the end of a date and you're on their patio and you don't even smoke, but you're smoking cigarettes and suddenly you're just having the best conversation of your life. And you're like, how did we get here? It really does feel like another place.
Right.
And other times you go, that was a very great interview. That was a fun conversation. Either way, we win. But sometimes you really feel like you're like, we got there. Like,
right.
It's one thing to get there alone. You can sit there and be quiet and appreciative of birds and the sun and eating granola or whatever you're doing. But if you can hold someone's hand and cross through the threshold together, that's that magic that's hard to get. I'm glad it's hard to get. If I could do it 3 out of 3, I'd just be like, well, that's not that special. 2 out of 3 are still great. And I would like to plug my podcast. It's called
Please do.
You Made It Weird.
Yes. Let's go around the table and plug our shit. Follow me on Twitter at Allison Rosen. Follow the show's feed at show's Twitter feed at ARIYMBF. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe. iTunes.com/Allison Rosen. Jeff, where should we go for you?
You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Colonel Jeff Fox.
And Pete, let them know where to find you and what they should look. Just plug all your things.
Plug it. You
Do
can
it.
currently, if you want to hear the Double Snakes joke in all its glory, it's on HBO Go or HBO Now. I believe you can get free trials of those things as well if you don't have those services. It's called Faces and Sounds. It's available now. And then on February 19th, Crashing, the show that I made with Judd Apatow, loosely based on the true, at times sad story that I told today. But it is very, very funny. A lot of great comedians, Sarah Silverman, TJ Miller, Artie Lang, Hannibal Buress, just the funniest people I know that came and did the show. It was amazing. So that's going to be out as 8 episodes. So 8 weeks starting February 19th on HBO after Girls. It's the Apatow Hour.
Nice.
And my podcast is called You Made It Weird. If you like not just my opinions, but hearing other people's opinions on the meaning of life and God and happiness and figuring it out in love and breakups and all that good stuff, there's so many great episodes. Just find anyone that you're interested in and listen. I hope you like it.
Perfect. Thank you again for coming by. Listeners, thank you for listening. I love you. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen show? We had a good time